So essentially, how Kalm Skip works is what we are planning to do is we cannot get through Mithril Mines because the party stops us. But very fortunately, we are able to go to the right to pick up long range and set up preemptive Genova. But we can't go left in order to exit this half of the mines and then make our way to Junon. So the purpose of Kalm Skip is instead to run. We're gonna execute a trick that allows us to clip through the mountain and get to this grass over here, essentially getting through the cave without ever entering the cave, and that's going to let us move to Junon without ever having entered Kalm. So how do we do that? Well, you'll notice that the world map is made of triangles, and to be somewhat brief about how this works, is that the game keeps track of the last 6 triangles that Cloud has been standing on. And also, this kind of matches up with what we were talking about earlier about danger incrementation and world map mechanics in general. You'll notice that the triangles are how those ground types worked, where the dirt was one ground type, and then the grass was ground type 0, the edge of the mountain is ground type 16, right? You can see the actual triangles of where those ground types change based on this map here. And so the game keeps track of the last 6 triangles that Cloud has been standing on, except when Cloud gets onto a chocobo, it stops keeping track of the triangles, and it just remembers the last 6. And then when you get off of the chocobo, the game looks at those 6 triangles, and if you are in the same region, right, if the triangle is in the same region, it first tries to put him on one of those. So what we can do, though, is there's a little bit of an error, you could say, or an oversight in the way that it's coded, where when the game remembers the last 6 triangles that Cloud was standing on, it's remembering where they are in RAM right now. All of these triangles are loaded into the PlayStation's RAM right now so that the world map can exist and be displayed. But you see, the blue grid are the regions that get loaded one at a time, or so many of these can be loaded at once. So the blue grid, only so many regions can be loaded at once, and so the blue squares, they load in and out as you move around the world map. Every time that you change regions, the game looks at that region change and makes a decision on which regions to unload and which ones to load in order to appear to have a continuous world map. Now, the oversight comes in from the fact that they don't load in a specific order in RAM. Right now, this region is in a certain spot in RAM, but if we unload this region by moving into different regions, and then we run back and load the region back in, it will load into a different location in RAM. And we can make it such that, but the triangles that are being pointed to, as far as the last 6 that Cloud was standing in, are pointing into the old location in RAM that these triangles were in. But the game does see that you're in the same region code, and so it tries to put him on the triangles, but the triangles that it tries to put him on are in a different... They might not even be triangles anymore, because what we do is we are going to do very specific movement in order to load the regions in a specific order, to make it so that when the game looks at those old triangles, it looks at the data that was in the location of the old triangles. What it's going to see is actually vertex data from a different region. So we have to get on the chocobo and run through a specific path of regions in order to load a region into this current location in RAM that is going to be vertex data from that region instead. And what that's going to achieve is another oversight in the game's logic, where if it tries to put Cloud on a triangle that has 0 area, the game's logic thinks that he is always standing on that triangle, and so you have free movement over mountains, over anything, as long as you are in the region that that triangle is coded to. So that will only give us free movement in this region. And for the old version, you may remember the old version of Kalm Skip, that was enough. In the old version, we would corrupt this triangle, we would run the chocobo all the way over here, and we'd have to execute another exploit in order to make the chocobo dismountable, and then we would corrupt this triangle in order to then leave, come back, and when we hop off the chocobo and have free movement in this region, we could run across this little river here and land over here, and then we could make our way down to Junon. But here, it's a little bit faster to do it this way, but we need to corrupt 2 triangles. Because at first, we're going to corrupt one of the triangles coming from stepping out of the mithril mines and getting on the chocobo. We loaded these 2 in. We're going to corrupt one of those, and then use our free movement to touch this triangle. And then we're going to get back on the chocobo, do more chocobo movement, and then when we get off, we're going to have 2 corrupted triangles. One is in this region, one is in this region, giving us free movement in both. Whoops. And that is going to allow us to run straight through the mountain and land on this grass over here, and make our way to Junon without ever having visited Kalm. So let's show the execution of that, shall we? So we just grabbed long range, we just set up preemptive Genova, and so coming out of the cave, all you have to do is hold up, right, and circle to get onto your chocobo after having loaded put the correct triangles into memory here. And then the actual path of movement that we do for the first corruption is to run straight right until about right here, and then start running up and right. And while you do this, you have to avoid the Midgar Zolom, but remember, the entire purpose of what we're doing is we are stepping into these squares in a certain order. So if you have to make a slight adjustment to get around the Zolom, you'll be just fine as long as you didn't cross any region borders. So slight adjustments are okay, but they're a little worrisome. Big adjustments, much more worrisome. So anyway, it's going to be directly right and then upright until you get to the tip of this thing here, and right when you step onto the grass, but not too far, because the region border is right here, so we don't want to run too far onto the grass because we don't want to run into this region, but we want to run a little bit onto the grass so that we don't fight the Zolom. So right when you get onto the grass, it's a nice indicator to start going directly up. Right until you cross, you see like the fold in the mountain here coming down. Right when you cross the fold right here, that's a region border right there, and that's what we're trying to get to. Is we want to cross that and then start running right. And then you see the chocobo tracks down here. I kind of imagine like a square, like this is a square, you know, with these 3 feet on it, and I want to line up with the right side of it. So, or I want to hit the right side of that square. And so what you're doing here is you're running into this region and a little bit into it. So, and at that point, when you hit that part, you start going down left, all the way back to the starting position. So right until about here, and you can stop. You don't have to do it as fast as I'm doing. You can stop and then start going down, but you don't have to stop. And if you did it right, you line up with the point of the grass coming into the swamp here, and then you get to about here, and at which point you have completed the chocobo route. And so now what you want to do is dismount. You see this this kind of triangle that I'm highlighting right here. You kind of want to dismount the chocobo on that a little bit, standing up on it just a little bit. And the triangle that I mentioned that we're going to corrupt now, like this is the triangle that I was just highlighting. And then the one that we're going to corrupt is this one directly to the left of it. So, because of the current corrupted triangle that we have, when we step off the chocobo now, Cloud pops up into the air. And you can see, it looks like he just got off the chocobo to the north, but actually, he's floating in the air and did indeed get off the chocobo to the south. And so now, if we load up the world map RAM here again, like we should have, now, the triangle that we are aiming directly to the left, do you see this line right here on the mountain that's got this little blob right here on it? That blob is this corner of the triangle that we want. And so we want somewhere on the seam above it, but not further than this, though, because we're trying to hit the edge of this triangle to load it into Cloud's previous 6 triangle data. And so that is about this line right here. It's blob up to, you see there's kind of another line right here that has a little spot right there. It's this line right here. And so you can take your time with this if you want. What's very important is that you use as little movement as possible here. You run directly left, and you can baby this if you need, but when Cloud bumps into the mountain like that, you're done, get back on the chocobo. So start holding circle and run right, maybe a little bit upright, and get back on the chocobo. It looks a little funky. You know, it looks a little funky getting back on the chocobo because remember, Cloud is in the air right now. So he bumps into the mountain and then back on the chocobo. And the reason it's so important to have as little movement here as possible is because remember we were talking about world map fractions earlier. You just exited a vehicle. And so your fractions are -30 when you get off the chocobo, which means you're not gonna get a danger tick or a battle check until 47 frames of movement from now. So you've got 47 frames of movement to avoid increasing your danger. And it's very, very important to not increase your danger while you're doing this, because after this, we're going to have to run all the way through the mountain, and if you get into a battle when you're inside the mountain, it's a soft lock. And the reason that happens is because we're talking about corrupting triangles here. And when you get into a battle, it deloads the world map. So all of your work is gone. And when the game loads the world map back in, everything is corrected. But if Cloud is standing in a place that he can't usually stand because you were clipping, you're soft locked, you can't move Cloud. So, that is why, at this point, use as little movement as possible. You see, if we go left, just until we bumped, and then right over back to the chocobo, I'm only at 11 fractions right now. So, that was just fine. We didn't get any danger. Alright? So now that this triangle is loaded into Cloud's pointers, we now need to corrupt that one. And the way that we're going to do that is to go directly up and right. And then you see this blob right here. Kind of when you start to get to that one, start going directly right. So right, upright into just right. And then keep an eye on the farm here, because what we want to do now is we are now about right here. And we're going to go right, and we want to load into this region. So we want to make sure that we are below the farm to make sure that we load it into this region. And then we're going to run up into the barn to load this region. And then I go back down a little bit to make sure we hit this one. But we'll get into that in a second. So keep an eye on the barn here and get directly below it. Then run up to it. And then I run down until I'm lined up with the tracks, and then go down left until I'm lined up with... you see the 2 different shades of grass here? I line up with that, and then kind of follow the grass here so that the Zolom isn't chasing me. And it's fine. You can see that right here, it's all the same 2 regions. So you can follow the grass here, and you'll be in this region and then that one without any problems. Kind of follow the grass to avoid getting chased by the Zolom. and then go straight down left from the point of the grass here. And then when you see this shadow start to go start to kind of just make your way left to this part. Now we have a triangle that is corrupted in both this region and the neighboring one. So at this point, if you jam with up left up into the corner and then release and hit X, you can get off the chocobo from this point, which is the closest point to the grass, which is important because we don't want to get into a battle here. So this is where you clench up, you clench your ass, and just run left as you clear the text. And you hope that you don't get into a battle. And there we have done it. We have skipped Kalm. We are now out on this side of the caves without ever having gone, or without having to have gone through the Mithril Cave. So let's do all of that a little bit faster. So we came out of the mines, and here's about how it looks at speed. So we came out of the mines holding upright and circle. Upright, dodge the Zolom just a little bit, go up, right, down left, just left to kind of get into position here. Bump the mountain, up right, into right, up to the barn, down, down left, left, follow the shore, down left, left at the shadow, get out here, and go left. And there you have it. So that is it kind of at speed. So, just to show you what happens if you do get into a battle in the mountain, and this might happen. If you are very unlucky, you will run left, and you'll get into a battle right here. And if this happens, I'm sorry. It's just the cost of skipping Kalm, is that every once in a while, you'll get into a battle right here inside the mountain. And when that happens, as I discussed earlier, you're done. You can't move. There's no way out of this. There's no way out of this. So if you are very, very scared about this happening, you can go ahead and just save your game after you exit the Mithril Caves. Right here, when you're exiting the Mithril Cave and you're about to get on the chocobo to do the movement, optionally you can just save the game here. And then if Kalm Skip soft locks you in the mountain, load your game and try again. But there you go. So, and you might be like, well, if you loaded your game, then won't that just get you another world map encounter? Only, that would be a pretty darn astute question. However, that would only be if your fractions and your world map RNG index lined up exactly the same way that they did last time, which is extremely unlikely, because that would mean that you would have to basically do like the exact same movement, especially with the involvement of the Midgar Zolom. You would have to do it exactly the same. And because of loading the game and the Midgar Zolom's placement when you load the game, it might even actually be different even if your inputs were exactly the same. So yeah, you don't got to worry about that. All right, so that is Kalm Skip, and so what you would now do is just make your way over to Junon. You can expect about 2 encounters on the way to Junon. If you get 3, that's pretty unlucky. If you get 1, that's pretty lucky. So generally, let's talk about your movement from Kalm to Junon. So we got a battle right here. That's pretty early after the mountain, but whew, at least it's not in the mountain. So first of all, in order to optimize your movement to Junon, remember about buffering movement. Don't wait for the screen to fade in to start moving. You should be buffering your movement already to get those 13 frames in. Now, right here is a pretty important spot in the route, because this is a good visual cue of where you can safely go through the forest. Basically, forests have significantly more danger incrementation than grass does. And so generally, you don't want to run through the forest. I'm going to freeze my fractions here real quick just to show you that generally you want your movement to be cut down right here and then back up. And then you can kind of see, do you see like this seam right here? You can actually see the region borders right here. There's like a plus-shaped seam that's the corner of these regions. What I usually do is I run the cloud up to just underneath it and then start running left at that point. Because remember, you want to avoid dirt. Don't run through the dirt. So I run up left from the mountain to just underneath this seam is kind of what I look at, and then go directly left. And then that lines you up right here to then go into Junon. So I mentioned that particular visual indicator though, of right here. So here's the thing about this part though, is running down and around the forest is oftentimes what you do. However, let's say you got into a fight after. If you get into a fight after that visual indicator, that spot on the dirt, like here, we're getting into a fight just after, right? So if you get into a fight even just after it, remember those that negative 140 fractions plus the 17 fractions it takes to count up to the first rollover, plus the 13 frames of movement. You have 169 frames of movement before the first danger incrementation, which is actually enough, as you can see here, to run through the forest without incrementing any danger. This 512 danger, 512 means that we were out of the forest before that ticked up. Because 512 is the amount of danger that you get on grass or on a mountain edge. So 512 is good. That means we made it past the mountain or past the forest before our danger started incrementing. So that's the trick. You look at the dirt. If you get a battle, if you're running directly left and you get a battle after that point on the dirt, then you can run straight through the forest because it's a little bit faster to not have to run down and around. So that's just a little optimization when you make your way over to Junon. And then we make our way to Junon. Boom. And here we are. We have made it to Junon. Should we show Kalm Skip 1.0 real quick? Okay. This is a little bit of extracurricular, okay? We're going extracurricular for a second just for fun. There is a thing in this game where notice that when we get off the chocobo on this square of grass, Cloud tells the chocobo to stay. The reason that this is even the case is so that you are able to go to Mithril Mines, get turned around by the party, and then you're not screwed being on the wrong side of the Zolom marsh when you need to go to Kalm. So they specifically coded into the game this flag that triggers when you step on any one of these triangles. This flag triggers that says that you are allowed to dismount a chocobo, and Cloud will tell it to stay, and then you can get back on it. And then that flag disables when you step on any one of these triangles. So as you can see, if we get back on the chocobo and run out here and get off, the chocobo runs away because the flag is now disabled. Now, here's another thing though, is when you get into the fight with the Zolom, the thing that it does is it teleports you back to the last side of the grass that you stepped off of. Here we are. It teleports you back to the last side of the grass that you stepped off of. Now, the wording there, though, is pretty specific. it teleports you to the last side of the grass that you stepped off of. So if you were to step off of this side of the grass and then step onto this side of the grass, enabling the Chocobo dismount flag, and then somehow get into a battle with the Zolom without stepping off of this grass, both flags are active for you to be able to still dismount the Chocobo, but you'll get teleported over the trigger to turn it off and onto this grass. And this is how we used to have to do Kalm Skip when we didn't know about being able to run through this mountain, and we used this spot instead. So that's how you activate the trick. And so to show that in action, what we have to do is, after the Mithril Mines, we come up here, we have to step off of this grass, and then lure the... hey, buddy? Lure the dumb Zolom behind us. And then, forgive me if this takes a couple tries, but if we step up onto the grass, and then he hits us in the ass... Oh... Now, the problem with this trick is that the moment that you step up onto the grass, he veers off in a random direction. So, it was very frustrating to have to get this in a run. Yeah, this was doable. Sometimes you could get it first try. Oh, there we go. We did it. So, that got us... So we stepped up onto the grass. Then the Zolom touched us to get into a fight. By the way, you should defend from the Zolom instead of changing because he does so much damage. I did not do that time. And now, magically, because the last side of the grass that we stepped off of was this side of the grass, we get teleported to this side. But because we did step onto the grass on the other side, we have a Chocobo that we are able to dismount even out here. There you go. So that was the start of old Kalm Skip, and then what we would do is we would bring the Chocobo over here, and we would come down and dismount it right here, and then get back on, go straight up. Go right about here. This had been optimized further. This is just the last version that I learned. And then go left. About here you can start going down left. Get off the Chocobo again. Cloud sinks into the ground. And there it is. So that was the first version of Kalm Skip. But it required that Zolom trick that was so difficult to pull off that's why we ended up developing this version, where you do it all in here, where you're naturally allowed to dismount a Chocobo. The only thing is that it is a slightly higher chance. 1, 2, 3 danger ticks, 3 battle checks happen in the mountain. While I think only 1 battle check happened across the river, maybe 2, but I think it was only 1. So yeah, there's the difference. All right. Let's just get back to Junon, and then we can continue the tutorial. Hoo boy. All right, so like this time, you see, just like I was talking about, we got into the battle after that spot on the dirt. And so now we can safely just run through the mountain, or forest, run through the forest without incrementing any extra forest danger. Yeah. Welcome to Junon.